Welcome back. We're unpacking a plethora of issues surrounding transgender issues. Specifically, we're going to talk now about President Donald Trump's executive orders pertaining to transgender rights, I suppose. And joining me again are Dr. Linda Blade and Heather Mason. So, Dr. Blade, we were unpacking sort of part of the components that came in multiple, I guess, Trump executive orders. And one of the early ones was on free speech as it relates to this issue. Could you share with us or unpack that for us? How did that go through?
Yeah, I think what was happening in the States and which is happening in Canada, before Trump came into office, freedom of speech was at risk because whenever anybody started talking like we are today on this topic about the balancing of women's rights and transgender issues, there was definitely federal censorship going on. The federal government and states was pressuring social media platforms to shut people down. In this country of Canada, it's so bad that if you say anything on social media, it's not just the social media platforms that might punish you, it might actually be your employer. And
Wow.
we saw this happen with nurse Amy Ham in British Columbia, who just got fired uh, for simply saying that biological sex is real and it's binary, and just agreeing with people like Jordan Peterson and J.K. Rowling about the fact that you should be truthful when you speak about these things.
So
I
sorry, just
mean,
to be
if a
clear,
nurse,
so she said biological sex is real,
yes,
and that got
and it's
her
binary.
fired. That like
So what happened
yeah.
was, yes, so there was an anonymous complaint online, like somebody who was online. They weren't even a patient of hers. They just basically, some anonymous person in BC just complained to the college, College of Nurses and Midwives. And then a tribunal ensued for almost 2 years, at least 2 years, where they were punishing her through the process of tribunal, like this extended sort of ongoing tribunal. And then after that was concluded, immediately Vancouver Coastal Health just last week fires her and
Wow.
without compensation. And all she was doing was standing up for women's sex-based rights. That's all she was doing. If a nurse in this country, Canada, cannot say that she knows the difference between a man and a woman, then who can be a nurse? I mean, honestly.
Wow, that's shocking. Did that surprise you to hear that she was fired, Heather?
No, it didn't surprise me. I haven't talked about this too publicly, but I have a similar scenario as Amy. I was actually working as a peer researcher, doing studies on addiction, mental health, and incarceration. And the research assistant found out that I was a founding member of Canadian Women's Sex-Based Rights, and they asked me to leave my position because they said that COSBAR was a hate group and they were trans rights were human rights. So I encountered this same situation. I want to say it was fall 2023 now.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I was on a contract that could be ended. So I didn't end up fighting it. But again, it, anyone who speaks out about women's rights or anything to do with men and women's prisons, men and women's sports, men and women's safe spaces, they are at risk of losing their job. And I am so proud of Amy for standing up and fighting for her free speech and for reality.
Now, we were talking about these concerning areas like sports and prisons. We've covered them. One of them very egregious areas where I think it should be very clear that biological men shouldn't. I mean, there are many areas, but it's like abuse shelters for women. So women are seeking refuge after being abused by a male, and they're in these shelters. But then there are biological men in there. I mean, that's got to be so triggering. Maybe Heather, you can speak to that.
Yeah, there's a really big case about a year or so ago now by a man named Shane Green, and he was a convicted sex offender multiple times. And he went into a women's shelter in Parry Sound, Ontario, where he was making sexually aggressive comments to the staff at the shelter and sexually assaulted a woman there. He was arrested, and I was following his like court on, you could do it online. So I was on Zoom watching it. And I remember he went and he was like, "Judge, I need you to take care of this matter. I tried to transfer to the women's jail and they won't let me. And I'm going to unalive myself if they don't allow me to transfer." And I'm thinking, like, this is just crazy. You are a convicted sex offender who went into a woman's shelter where there are vulnerable women who have been abused and who are homeless. You took advantage of them. You sexually assaulted them. Now you've been arrested because you did this and you want to be transferred to a woman's jail or
Wow.
else you're going to off yourself.